Iran Daily Briefing. Monday, May 4, 2026. Iran's military warned this morning that any foreign armed forces entering the Strait of Hormuz will be attacked. The warning came within hours of President Trump announcing that the United States would begin escorting stranded vessels out of the strait. Tehran called that escort mission a breach of the April 8th ceasefire. We'll have the full picture in today's top story, and we'll look at what this means for the stalled diplomatic track. The ceasefire between the US and Iran has held since April 8th, but negotiations have been at a standstill since that date, according to France 24 and Al Monitor. Over the weekend, Trump reviewed Iran's 14-point proposal, submitted through mediator Pakistan, and said he doubted it would be acceptable, adding that Tehran had, in his words, not yet paid a big enough price. On Monday, Tehran responded by warning that any American military presence in the strait would constitute a ceasefire violation. That is the fault line today's episode runs along. On one side, a US escort mission announced this morning. On the other, an Iranian military threat issued the same morning. In between, roughly 20,000 seafarers stranded on some 2,000 vessels, according to the International Maritime Organization. Today, we'll cover that confrontation in depth. Then, a new development in the MV Touska crew transfer, a status check on Narges Mohammadi, and Iran's executions of 3 men accused of collaborating with Israeli intelligence. We'll also note where yesterday's Beijing sanctions story stands and flag what to watch in the next 48 hours. The core tension today is direct and serious. President Trump announced on Monday that the United States would launch an effort to, quote, guide stranded ships out of the Strait of Hormuz. The announcement came as the International Maritime Organization had documented the full scale of the humanitarian and commercial crisis there. Up to 20,000 seafarers stranded on approximately 2,000 vessels, at least 19 attacks since the crisis began, 10 seafarers killed and 8 more injured. Iran's response was immediate. Ali Abdullahi, head of the Unified Command of the Iranian military, warned that any foreign armed forces entering the Strait of Hormuz will be attacked. That statement was reported by both France 24 and Middle East Eye. Tehran went further. France 24 reports that Iran told the United States it would have to choose between what it called an impossible military operation or a bad deal. Iran also stated, according to France 24, that any American interference in the strait would be seen as a breach of the April 8th ceasefire. So the positions are now explicit and on the record. Washington says it will move ships through the strait. Tehran says that movement means war. To understand where this sits diplomatically, negotiations have been frozen since the ceasefire took effect. France 24 and Al Monitor both report that talks have been at a standstill since April 8th. The 14-point proposal Tehran submitted through Pakistan was dismissed over the weekend by Trump, who said he doubted its acceptability. Iran, for its part, has not publicly withdrawn the proposal. A billboard reading, "The Strait of Hormuz remains closed," was displayed at Revolution Square in Tehran on April the 28th, last Monday, nearly a week before today's broadcast. That public message has now been reinforced by this morning's military statement from Abdullahi. The Pakistan channel, which carried Tehran's 14-point proposal, remains the documented diplomatic conduit. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Mohammad Ishaq Dar and Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi held a phone call to discuss the regional situation and Pakistan's mediation role, according to Middle East Eye. No outcome from that call has been reported. Japan's Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi, speaking during a visit to Australia, said the Iran war oil crisis is having what she called an enormous impact in the Asia-Pacific region. That statement, reported by Al Jazeera, reflects the degree to which the Strait crisis has become a matter of active concern well beyond the immediate parties. The specific thing to watch, whether US naval vessels enter the Strait today or in the coming hours, and whether Iran follows through on Abdullahi's warning. Any movement in the Pakistan Channel following the Narges call would also be significant. Story 1. MV Touska. Crew transfer. Yesterday, we covered the OFAC shipping alert tied to the MV Touska, the Iranian-linked vessel seized on April 20th in the Gulf of Oman after it attempted to breach the US naval blockade. The new development today is the crew transfer. US Central Command has transferred the 22 crew members to Pakistan for repatriation to Iran, a step not reported in yesterday's briefing. Al Jazeera and Middle East Eye both report the transfer. The vessel itself is part of the Islamic Republic of Iran shipping lines, IRISL, which has been sanctioned by Washington, according to Al Monitor. The ship was boarded off Iran's Chabahar port, also in the Gulf of Oman. The crew transfer to Pakistan is a discreet step. It moves the humanitarian dimension of this incident toward resolution, while the vessel and the broader blockade question remain unresolved. Watch for any Iranian statement on the crew's return, and for whether Tehran uses the transfer as a point of negotiation or as a grievance in the Strait confrontation. Story 2. Iran executes. 3 men accused of spying for Mossad Fars. News agency Iran's state-affiliated outlet reported that Iran executed 3 men, Mehdi Rasooli, Mohammad Reza Miri, and Ebrahim Dolatabadi. The charge against all 3 was collaborating with Mossad, Israeli intelligence. They were also accused of inciting unrest in Mashhad during protests in January. According to Middle East Eye, Dolatabadi was specifically accused of leading groups of protesters during clashes that resulted in deaths and damage to public and private property, including a bank and a Basij base. The Basij is a paramilitary unit within Iran's security forces. This is a new story for today's briefing. It has not appeared in prior episodes. The executions carry significance on multiple levels simultaneously. They are a domestic security action, carried out during a period of active military confrontation. They are also a public signal. Iran is treating collaboration with Israel as a capital offense, while ceasefire negotiations with the US remain frozen. No international response has been reported as of this broadcast. Story 3. Narges Mohammadi, status check. Following up on what we covered Thursday through yesterday, Narges Mohammadi, the imprisoned Iranian activist and 2023 Nobel Peace Prize laureate, remains hospitalized. There is no new development reported today. This is a status check with no new developments since yesterday's briefing. What Al Monitor reported as of Sunday, May 3rd, the most recent dateline in today's sources, is that Mohammadi was in critical condition in a cardiac care unit in northwestern Iran. That detail, the cardiac care unit location, was not in yesterday's briefing and represents the most current picture we have. To recap where this stands, she fainted twice on a Friday before her transfer, according to France 24. She suffered a suspected heart attack in late March. Her family has described a continuing deterioration. No statement from Iranian authorities on her condition has been reported. No formal international response from the UN, the Nobel Committee, or any government appears in today's intel. We will continue to flag any development on her condition as it comes in. A note on yesterday's story. 3. Beijing contests the sanctions. Yesterday, we covered China's challenge to US sanctions on Chinese oil refineries accused of processing Iranian crude. There is no update on that story in today's intel. We'll flag it in the look ahead as a thread to continue monitoring. This morning's confrontation over the Strait of Hormuz involves 2 parallel tracks that are now moving in opposite directions. On the military track, the US announced escort missions for stranded vessels. Iran's military commander issued an explicit warning that foreign forces entering the strait will be attacked. Tehran labeled the escort mission a ceasefire violation. On the diplomatic track, the Pakistan Channel remains active. Arghchi and Dar spoke by phone, but no outcome has been reported. Trump dismissed Iran's 14-point proposal over the weekend. Iran's public posture, captured in that Tehran billboard from April the 28th, is that the strait remains closed. The IMO's figures give the humanitarian dimension concrete weight: 20,000 seafarers, 2,000 vessels, 10 killed. Japan's Prime Minister, speaking in Australia, called the impact on the Asia-Pacific region enormous. Those are the facts on the ground as of Monday morning, May 4th. 3 things to watch in the next 24 to 48 hours. 1. The escort mission. Trump announced it for Monday. The central question is whether US naval vessels actually enter the strait and what Iran does in response. Abdullahi's warning was unambiguous. Any movement or any Iranian action would mark a significant escalation beyond the current ceasefire framework. 2. The Pakistan diplomatic channel. Araghchi and Dar have spoken. The 14-point proposal is on the table, dismissed by Trump but not formally withdrawn by Tehran. Any statement from Islamabad or any US engagement with the proposal, even a negative one, would be the next data point on whether diplomacy is alive or effectively finished. 3. The NPT Review Conference in New York. Diplomats convened in New York from April the 27th through May 22nd for the latest session of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference. With the Natanz strikes of March 2nd as context, any statement from that conference touching on Iran's nuclear file would be worth noting. There is no update on Beijing's challenge to the Iran-related shipping sanctions from today's intel. That remains an open thread. Today's briefing covered Iran's military warning against US escort operations in the Strait of Hormuz, the transfer of the MV Touska's crew to Pakistan, Iran's execution of 3 men on espionage charges, and a status check on Narges Mohammadi's condition in a cardiac care unit in northwestern Iran. We'll be back tomorrow with any overnight developments on the Strait confrontation and the diplomatic track. If you found today's briefing valuable, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. New episodes every morning.